Welcome, Shalom family. We're getting ready to start a new series. I've been mentioning this for the last few weeks, but this series will take us from the spring feast that we just completed all the way to the fall feast. So I think it's gonna be pretty exciting just to look at the scriptures and let them speak to us in a way that allows us to see how Yahweh has just really planned things out. Everything becomes so clear when we look at scripture from the right context, and not from a context that someone said we need to look at it, but how scripture actually speaks to us. Not the way that a seminary has said we should look at it, but what we actually see and read for ourselves. We're not just starting, a new teaching. I won't call it a new teaching. I just called it a series, but it's really not a new teaching. Up until this point, our teaching really is focused on the amounts of what amounts to a reset and how we view the context of scripture. And with that reset in mind, we are really starting a journey. And this journey is one that's really exciting. And the goal isn't just to understand something, it's actually to walk it out. So it goes beyond understanding. Understanding something is one thing, but to actually walk it out is something totally different. It's different to actually take action. Anyone can understand. That doesn't mean they take action. That doesn't mean that they will fall in line. It just means they understand. When we walk it out, we take action, that's a totally different story altogether. Most people are used to hearing messages, but I would argue that this will be different. We're not just going to talk about truth. We're going to follow the path together. And you'll see how that unfolds as we go through these. But in Psalms 84:5, blessed is the man whose strength is in you. Your highways are in their heart.
I think the highways being in their heart, it hits me like if we have the strength of Abba, then our paths are going to be made straight, like it's embedded. The journey, the path, the way he wants us to walk is going to be embedded in our hearts. It's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the way I see it. It's becomes pretty clear. It's something that's ingrained in us. It's embedded in us. It's just part of our DNA because he has placed it there. But it's up to us to activate it. We don't think of this like separate topics when we go through each of these part of this series over this period of time between spring feast to fall feast. They're really not separate topics. Everything will connect. And this, as you guys know, that's something that we have discovered. Everything connects. Yahweh has this master plan, and there are connections to everything that he does. It all connects together. And this will be no different. And we're just going to take it deeper. So Isaiah 28:10, it says something pretty clearly, something that we've all heard over and over. Command upon command, line upon line, here a little, there a little. We've heard that many times. But that's how we're going to build. That's how we're going to build on these topics. And it all starts to make sense when we do that. And by the end, we should see how we should see this path very clearly. In other words, we should see the whole path. Nothing hidden, nothing that's a mystery. It should be very clear. Luke 8:11.
And this is the parable. The seed is the word of Yahweh.
What is the seed?
It's the word.
It's the word. It's the word. So yeah, everything becomes clear because of his word. Let's start with the Yahweh shot. Matthew 7:13-14. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it. Because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Did you catch that? He didn't describe a moment. He's really describing a way. Because this is not, in my background as a, in my spiritual, religious, Christian background, this was always described as a single moment. This is not a single moment at all. This is a path. And this is going to become really clear here as we go forward. This is a path, not a single moment. And there are two gates, and there's a journey that occurs because of this. And we'll see this clearly. This is where most people miss it. They think this is about a moment, a single moment. As I mentioned, my upbringing, I'm a witness to it, was always taught to be a single moment.
I think you made a key point. In all the years that I've gone to church, it was the word for the day, not the message for a lifetime existence and a path or a route or a direction or pattern to follow. It was, here's your message. And you walk out and people ask you, what'd you think? Oh, that was good. That was good. I needed that today. As opposed to, it needs to be a lifetime changing word, which is how he wrote the scripture. So I just want to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Well said. Well said. Yeah. And I've heard that statement many times, a word for today. And it's much more than that. Those type of statements really were, oh yeah, I needed that today, etc. That just kind of became some rote sayings that people just kind of regurgitated, not really understanding what they were really saying. It's because they've heard other people say the same thing, and it makes you feel good. But yeah, it's not about just a word for today. Here's what the scriptures say, Proverbs 4:18. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines ever brighter until the perfect day. And you think about that, that's really about movement. It's about progression. It's not a one-time event. The path of righteousness is like the light of dawn that shines ever brighter until the perfect day. Shines ever brighter. That means it's getting brighter and brighter. It's continuous until the perfect day. Psalms 119, 105.
Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path.
Why do we need a light on the path if we're just standing still?
You can see where you're headed through that narrow path, through that gate. You got to be able to see.
There you go. There you go. Because you're not just standing still, right?
Nope.
Yeah, it's a movement. It's a movement. Why? So the broad path doesn't feel wrong. It actually feels normal. Proverbs 14:12. There is a way which seems right to a man, but his end is the way of death. But that's why people stay on it, because it feels right. The broad path feels easy, supported by others. There's no resistance, and many are walking the broad path. It's natural. But that doesn't make it right, because all those elements are in place. It just makes it easy to follow. And the easy button may not be the right button, as we'll see.
Touching on the Isaiah scripture you talked about, because that here, there, little, all that language, that context of what's happening there is, if you remember the verse, it talks about stammering lips. There's this element of, I think it's even, let me see. For with a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue, he speaks to this people. And then in verse 12, the end of verse 12, it says, but they would not hear. And so my question is, there's many people on this path that are being spoken to, but aren't hearing. And I'm sure it's partly because of how easy it is. It's supported, no resistance, many people walking in it. But when it comes to an awakening moment, at some point, they're going to have their eyes open, their ears peeled to hear. When you start on a broad path, and part of the reason you're on that broad path is you've been misled, and you think that you're on the right path, and you're actually reading scripture verses and going to, part of fellowship that kind of has a form of truth, right? Mm-hmm. But you're actually still on the broad path. You just don't know it. With that particular person, at some point, they're going to have to face the noise of the fact that, oh man, I've been on the wrong path the entire time. And that fork in the road can still be in front of them.
I want to insert something there for what you're saying, because, one of the things that makes it easy is that second part. It goes beyond just easy, but that second bullet that says supported. Because the social aspect of the broad path, everyone's going that way, everyone's doing the same thing, everyone supports one another and has each other's back, and it must be the right thing because everyone's going this way. That social aspect is what many find hard to break. No resistance.
Right.
We're all moving in the same direction, and it must be right if there's nothing that causes resistance to what we're doing. And what that also does is causes blinders, because now, we use the term indoctrination. Now I am so indoctrinated that anything else can't be right until it's wrong, until until, the preacher says something I don't like. Now my feelings are hurt. I gotta go find a different way. But that different way is still along the same broad path, but I want to find someone who is speaking in a way, talking in a way that doesn't hurt my feelings.
Mm.
That broad path is one that allows us to question what's being taught by one person, but still fall in line with along the same path. It's just following a different person, a different organization, but they're all on the same broad path. And whichever one feels easiest to me, whichever one feels that I'm accepted, that broad path allows all of those things to occur. And it feels normal and natural. But therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
So therein lies the problem.
And the compassion moment for me is just remembering that even, Hawashai says, I came for the lost sheep. There's a target group of people on that broad path that he says, I came for it. I came for them. So I always want to try to have that mentality that, I was once on that broad path too. And it is possible for those people to get off of that broad path and get on the narrow one, whereas, we can look at it like, yeah, they're just on that path. There's no end. It's really large and wide, and it's hard for people to get off of it. But Yahushua makes it possible, right? All things are possible through him. And so that's the piece that I just want to kind of remember as we're talking through this, is there is a compassion element to, let's not give up on those folks.
No, we can't give up, because everyone awakens at different times. But when that awakening moment occurs, it's up to the individuals. And that's not being, uncompassionate, but it's still up to each person, because we can't take action for anyone. We can sow seed. We can help instruct and share the word, but we can't make a decision for them. And so at some point, it's up to the individual to take the time to discover and question. Everyone should question, what they're doing, and does it align with the word? That's being a Berean, studying to show yourself approved. That's the test. Now, the narrow path. The narrow path is something that's intentional, if you will. When we look at, these bullets here, the narrow path, difficult, requires intention, not supported, few remain, that makes it pretty narrow. That language is narrow. But when we look at Deuteronomy chapter 5, 32 and 33, so condensing this a little bit, taking excerpts from that passage, guard to do as Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded you. Walk in all the ways which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded, that you live and it be well with you, and you shall prolong your days. We're walking, not standing still. And that's what's being commanded here. When he says, walk in all the ways which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded.
You know what? And I think too, what's happening in that scripture is not just talking about days on earth. It's really talking about you get to see the kingdom and live eternally.
Yep. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. So, because it's not just prolonging days now. This is prolonging days forever. forever. Psalms 1 and 2.
Blessed is the man who shall not walk in the counsel of the wrong, and shall not stand in the path of sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the Torah of Yahweh, and he meditates in his Torah day and night.
Man. What do you see when you read that, Yas?
I see a man is blessed if he's obedient. That's what I see. If he can be obedient, then he will be blessed. And he will know. I was saying, I feel like the scripture is like a mirror. It's a mirror. It's like if you're looking at yourself, if you're looking at the scriptures, you have to be doing what they say in your life, and if you're not, then, I think it's James or somebody in James said, you walk away and forget what you look like. So yeah, as long as we're walking, in his light and walking in the way of the Most High, then we're going to be blessed. And then it says, and shall not stand in the path of sinners, and shall not sit in the seat of scoffers. So that also lets us know, according to scripture, we shouldn't be in the path of those guys, people who live in that kind of life. So yeah, that's what I see off of it.
Yeah. And thank you for that. And, a key word you said, I think sums it up: obedience. Obedience to his word. Not to some man's word, not to an organization's word, not to a religious body's word, but to his word. Obedience. I love that. And, in doing so, whether, with all of this, it requires awareness every step of the way. And that's how we become obedient, is being aware of what Yahweh has instructed. Yeah, appreciate that.
Another quick thought is, how much you got to love the Torah to delight in it and meditate in it day and night. Like that's another level of dedication when you understand what it's actually all about.
Yeah.
You love it so much that you're meditating on it all the time, and you actually take delight in it. Yeah. It seems to me that the psalmist has an understanding of what the Torah is on another level, that he's willing to commit to it in that way, to actually be delightful in it. Like the word delight is like, oh man, this is lovely. It's kind of what comes to my mind.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the Torah, which again, a lot of Christian circles that we've grown up in give us the impression that that's supposed to be done away with. And it's like, that's not what I'm seeing here. This dude's loving it so much that he's delighting in it and meditating on it all the time.
Yeah.
So that really hits me.
Yeah. And thank you. And when you think about meditating on it day and night, it's not that he has his face in the word continually. It's because it's on his heart. And he governs his life based on what's in Torah. That's the meditation. That's the alignment.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's written, almost like what the scriptures say later on, that it's written on the hearts.
Exactly.
But it says it's happiness. It's happy as a man. Who doesn't want to be happy? So I like that. Just be happy, man. And I mean, if you walk, with the tool, with the Most High and follow His commands, you'd be happy all the time. So if you see somebody who's grumpy and cranky, what you doing? What you doing over there, brother?
Yeah. Not enjoying life for sure. It's such an awesome thing to think about, how that there is this joy, this happiness that's part of understanding the word, because and being obedient to it, and becomes at a point, once you really understand that and embrace it, it's hard to go backwards. In a sense, it's hard to go backwards unless you are willing to just deny it. And we know that that's happened. It's happened throughout history. It's happened to our ancestors, to where they got to the point to where they just denied the word. That's the reason why they followed pagan gods. That's the reason why they were disobedient and suffered the curses of Deuteronomy 28, because of disobedience and rejecting, in a sense, rejecting the word. And I guess for us, because we're, I consider that, we're hungry to learn the truth. So it just seems implausible to reject it. But our ancestors walked, in this real time, and they reject it. And that's where we don't want to go. So here's the part most people don't like, or I will say that people don't like, where that's many or most or whatever. But this is the part people don't like: many and few. Many and few. Matthew 22:14, many are called, few are chosen. So many is the broad way, few is the narrow way. And the ultimate outcome isn't the same. Many are called, few are chosen. And then in 2nd Esdras, chapter 8 and verse 1, the Most High hath made this world for many. Catch that. The Most High hath made this world for many. The world to come, he's made it for few. Now, what is it about the Most High that would make him do that? Make a world for many, but the world to come for few.
This one's deep for me, brother, because there's a verse in Isaiah that says he created evil. If you remember that, he says he created good, and I forget how it's worded, but you kind of get the sense like he created evil for a purpose. And it goes in back to the conversation that Shay's had about, okay, who's he going to trust in this world that you're referencing right now? But there's a purpose for everything that he, in his sovereignty, has allowed. Some people doesn't want to actually word it that okay, he created evil, he allowed for evil by way of creating someone, aka Satan, when he knew what he was going to do in regards to rebellion. But at the same time, it emphasizes his holiness, when you can see the stark contrast between evil and good. But long and short, when I think of the few, it's kind of like not everybody's going to choose him.
Yeah.
Not everybody chooses him, and he is the narrow path. He gives people the ability to choose, but people at the end of the day are going to choose to reject him, choose to rebel against him, even when they know they're doing it. And I think ultimately the millennial reign is going to show us that, because the Messiah is going to be here for an entire 1,000 years, and Satan's going to be locked up, and people aren't going to have an excuse to not know the truth. And Satan is released for a little while, and then they're still going to reject him. And it's like,
Yeah.
Really? We just had an age where you have no excuse because the truth has been in front of your face. The king of the world is Yahushua, and you're still going to reject him? It's like, to me, that decision that we're talking about is people will choose to reject him for whatever reason. Yeah, it's meant to be for few, because he wants the people that are going to be with him to want him. That's what love is. It's a choice.
he hardened the heart of Pharaoh, just so that the people can know his strength and know his, what he did. So yeah, it just lines up. And so the scripture you're referring to, that's Isaiah 45:7. He says, I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, Yahweh, do all these things.
If you think about the scripture that was shared, it says many are called, few are chosen, but there's some unspoken words. So when you start to dissect that, the rest, there's the called and there's the chosen, the rest get to make an election to follow him, make a choice. And those who don't make the right choice doesn't mean you're not chosen and you're not called. You made a decision not to follow.
They're taking the wide gate instead of the narrow gate, right? Brother Thomas, that's basically what you're saying. They're choosing.
They have a choice. I think that when you go back and you says, when you're sitting on the fence, you got to be hot or cold. You can't be on the fence. You got to make a choice. Otherwise, your decision to not make a choice leads you to a place where you actually did make a choice. You wouldn't choose hot or cold. When I think about that and break it down, it's Brother Saul, who later became Paul. He was hot, but hot on the wrong side of the fence. And when he had his eyes open, he was hot on the other side. If that makes sense. Because there's a third category that's unspoken, but they're included. For all the rest of you, I've got my elect, I've got my chosen people, and then all the others are called. Many are called. He didn't say all are called. He said many are called. So the rest who are not chosen and not the many have to make a decision.
And to piggyback on all three of those comments is that, Yah's referred to what happened when the children of Yasharal were released from Egypt. And there was a period of time when Pharaoh was being guided, influenced by what we now know in scripture is mastema. Mastema being what we call the devil, right? Mastema being the one that was influencing him, causing his heart to be hardened. And when Yahweh blocked Mastema from influencing him, his heart softened. He released the children of Yasharal. But in their release, in their quest, in their journey into the wilderness, Mastema was allowed to again influence Pharaoh, and Pharaoh began the chase. Because now he is being influenced by evil. And that is what we and all have to do, is to avoid that influence of evil. The influence doesn't go away, but that's where we have to stand strong in our obedience. And then we can make the right choice. We can jump off of that fence in the right direction, to stand with righteousness, to stand with truth, versus standing with evil. Yeah, so Zoe, yeah, you're right. In all of this, this goes deep. But this is the reality. Most people hear this and still stay on the broad path. But if something in you is telling you there's more, you're not wrong. Because scripture reveals a pattern and only a remnant sees it. Watch this next video. This is where it all starts to connect.